Hello.
Yeah, g'day Richie. Ricardo, how are you?
I'm very well, Ricardo. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, mate.
The Metal Bar, fantastic.
How's things, mate? Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Philadelphia at the moment. I don't know if you know, but over in LA there's this big NAMM music show going on, and I'm missing that because I've got a wedding in Philadelphia. My girlfriend's sister's just got married, so luckily I'm missing all the NAMM fun. So we've got about 3 weeks until we come over and see you lot down there. So we're stoked, man.
Yeah, no, it should be great, mate. We're looking forward to it. Now, am I right in thinking this won't be your first time to New Zealand? Were you here when Lauren Harris opened for Maiden on the Final Frontier tour?
That's right. Yeah, we were. It wasn't the Final Frontier. It was the.
Was it the Flight 666?
Somewhere Back in Time tour.
Yeah,
it was 2009, and it was the second year that we'd done the plane, the Flight 666 thing around the world. Instead of a tour bus, we had an aeroplane, and we were fortunate enough to go out with Maiden on that. And but I think it's the first time Priest had actually ever been to New Zealand to do any shows, which is, it's a great honour to be a part of their first time down there. If I'm not mistaken, I mean, maybe you can, you've got more knowledge on that.
No. I think you're bang on. They were supposed to come on the Nostradamus tour, but for whatever reason, it didn't end up happening. So this will be the first time that Priest have been here, mate. So, yeah, you will be part of that Priest history, which will be huge.
How cool is that? I mean, it's always great when, for me, it's weird that some people, they don't know who Priest are. Obviously different generations and different styles of music that people are introduced to. But, not everyone is introduced to everything. So it's great to go down and introduce people to Priest music. And we're doing some shows in Australia, as well. And their festivals. And it's always great. You can always turn new people onto music that's been around for 40 years. And just being a part of that's a monumental achievement, I think, for a band like Priest to still be around, turning people onto the heavy metal after 40 years.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It's huge, Richie. Were you a Priest fan growing up?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, playing in bars and clubs around London, I had my own bands as well, but, the staple diet for a gigging musician is covers, really. So we used to play Maiden and Priest and Sabbath and Ozzy and all that stuff, So I kind of learned a lot of my chops from Priest music. And, so when I got the call for Priest, they asked me to learn some songs, and I knew half of them already. I didn't tell them. It was just, they were just really impressed that I'd learned most of the stuff so quickly. But between me and you, I knew half of the stuff already from being a fan, So it was definitely grew up on a staple diet of Priest and the dual harmony guitar playing, and it was like second nature to me,
Yeah, well, how it must have been pretty surreal, though, being asked to join Judas Priest. I mean, I think most people who are metal fans or rock fans have seen that Rockstar movie with Mark Wahlberg in it. How similar to your experience was that, coming in and having to be in the same room as these legends and perform with them?
Well, it is still pretty surreal in a sense, because the thing is, when you meet these guys, it's like me and you going out for a beer and talking about the football or what car you bought. They don't come across as gods or legends, as you know it. They're just normal people like me and you. So very quickly you get a sense of family and inclusion, and you're down the pub having fish and chips, talking about other things and music, and so it's surreal, but in the sense of it's just very familiar. It's not like you and them; it's us together, and I think that also permeates in the pre-show. It's always been the audience and the band as one, and we'll experience that when we come down to New Zealand. But it is surreal on other levels, especially the first couple of big gigs I did with the band. It's just, you look around you, you can see what's going on, and even though you've got pretty close to these guys fairly quickly, you realise that's who they are, and this is the legacy that they've carved over the last 40 years. And they're standing right next to you on stage, sweating over the microphone or shredding on the guitar, And it is, when you take a step back like that, it is pretty humbling and pretty surreal, and it still is to this day, really.
Now, KK Downing, who you replaced, and Glenn Tipton, they worked together for so many years, 30 or 40 years. And the way they played really sort of complemented each other. They really had that groove. They fitted really well. Did you have to adapt your style much to play with Glenn as to what you would do, say, with Lauren Harris or Voodoo Six or any of your other bands?
Not really, no. I mean, it was whatever style of guitar music I've done, it's all come from the same roots. It all came from Hendrix, really. And I think Glenn and KK had the same roots as well. When they were inspired by the guitar players what they grew up on. So it came from the same place. I was then in turn inspired by what Glenn and Ken did in Judas Priest and got turned onto that kind of style of playing. So it was almost like I was being taught how to play that style indirectly, subconsciously, without knowing it. I was just turned onto that sort of guitar style anyway. So when I joined Priest, it was kind of, you knew what to do organically and naturally, because you've listened to that music and aspired to be like that. And the other bands I was in as well, it was different styles of it, but it all came from that same root, the Hendrix into the new wave of British heavy metal, and there's bits of Metallica and Michael Schenker of UFO in there. And it all kind of, one of the things Glenn says all the time, it was just so natural. We didn't have to think about it too much. We just did what we did. And fortunately, it worked. And I didn't have to put on a different hat. That was who I am as a guitar player, because I grew up on a healthy diet of that sort of stuff,
And was it the same when it came to writing Redeemer of Souls? Because, it was you, Rob, and Glenn that did the writing on that, or credited as the writers on that. So who carried the can for that? Who did the bulk of the writing there?
Well, we all did, and it was definitely the same kind of vibe. We, again, from a writing point of view, I've written stuff in the past, and when you're 14 or 15 and you're in bands in school, and you're looking to people like Priest or Sabbath or Maiden or whoever inspires you to see not only how they play the guitar, but how they put the music together and how they put kind of emotion over, or how they make different musical landscapes and stuff. And what do they do? How do they put these bits together? How do they get that kind of emotion from the music? So again, I'd looked to these guys before on how to do it, and when we got into the studio, and as you can imagine, you write riffs and stuff when you're in school that sound like Judas Priest, but you can't do it, you can't use it because it's like ripping Priest off. But when you're in Priest, you can write that stuff that comes naturally, and you can absolutely do it because now you're in the band, and it absolutely makes sense. So it was very freeing in that sense as well. And just the fact that we wanted to go in and do a Priest record that came from everyone's heart, and just do what we did. And if we had an idea, we'd put it on the table, and if it sounded great, we'd go with it. And that's what we did, really. So it was very natural again, and very organic, and just we did what we did as individuals.
Richie Faulkner from Judas Priest on the phone with us. And Richie, not only the legends in Judas Priest you worked with, but another guy who's a complete and utter legend, maybe even surpassing Priest on the legendary status, Christopher Lee. You worked with him on that Charlemagne album. How was working with a guy who was, in his 90s then, doing with such a theatrical background, working on an album with somebody like that?
I mean, again, surreal is the right word, man. I mean, and there's not many people, I think you're right, that can surpass legendary status, especially the ones that Priest have got. There's not many people that can do that, and I think Sir Christopher definitely is one of them. I mean, he's got such a history. I mean, not only his acting, but his personal life, and I think he's been in, a couple of world wars, and he's been through it. He's a wealth of knowledge, but it was surreal. I mean, it's a great story. He's the descendant of King Charlemagne, in real life, and the story is put together around the story of King Charlemagne's life, and there's parts that different people play and narrate and sing in the story. And it was great when I was putting those songs together. I mean, the songs were already in a kind of orchestrated format, and I had to put them together for a band format so they could be played live by a heavy metal band, so guitar parts and drum parts and bass parts and whatever. But they sent me the tracks with Sir Christopher just singing on his own. And I'll always remember having this massive voice booming over the speakers in my kitchen at the time, and that's where I had my little recording rig set up and that. And I can't imagine what the neighbours must have been thinking. You can imagine that voice, and it was kind of smite thee down with the swords covered in blood and all that sort of stuff. And I just remember thinking, what the hell must the neighbours be thinking? And I was actually living in Steve Harris's, one of Steve Harris's from Iron Maiden's outbuildings at the time. So there were monsters around and mummies and, Egyptian dogs in the driveway. And then I had Sir Christopher booming out this voice. It must have been pretty scary for anyone that was walking by.
Yeah, neighbours are like, oh no, they got Sarumon round for tea again.
Exactly. But I tell you what, though, he's a sweet guy. He's from a different. He's seen many different times, come and go, the 60s, the 70s, and he's 90 years old, and he's seen all that, and he's just got a different viewpoint on things based on his generation, really. And it's just really interesting to hear what he would do in current affairs based on his mindset. He's a sweet guy, just a great guy to be around, really.
Richie Faulkner from Judas Priest on the phone with us here, and you've been to New Zealand once before. We talked about that with Lauren Harris. When you were here last time, Richie, did you get to see much of the country, and will you get to see much this time round when you're down here for WestFest?
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, before when we were down, we had a couple of days off, so we all jumped in a car, and our tour manager at the time, he took us to, where's the Black Water Rafting Caves? It's something like...
down Waitomo?
That's it. That's the one.
Yep.
We all went down there. There was about 6 of us, and we all done the blackwater rafting and the glowworms and stuff. So it was great to get out in the countryside and see some of the country. And you definitely hope to do that again this time. It would just be an honour again just to be down there in New Zealand again. It's one of those places where you count your blessings if you get down there once, and to go back there again and with a band like Judas Priest. You know, I can't wait to see the Metalheads down there. I've never seen the Priest fans down there, and it's just going to be an amazing joy to be down there.
It'll be absolutely massive, and we're looking forward to having Priest down here for the first time, Richie. So, really looking forward to it, and appreciate your time, mate. Thanks very much. We'll let you get back to whatever it is you're doing in Philly, mate, and try and dodge those wedding festivities if you can.
All right, mate. Thanks, Ricardo. We'll see you out there soon.
Yeah, will do, mate. Thanks very much, Richie.
Bye-bye, mate.
Bye-bye.